All right, welcome everybody to The Sweat. Emerson wanted me to say this to everyone. Reid will be the best host and will be hosting in my stead. He's better, more skilled, and is an overall better person. His words, not mine. And
Guy's not even here. He'd be so thrilled that he's getting a shout out. None of that is right. It's all incorrect, but we were kind enough to, make a wish and let you open the show here. All right, enough of us, though. Someone who will clearly disagree with what Reid said. DK Live's Jeff Ulrich. We also have Anthony Amico from the Action Network. You can find him and a ton more on the Action Network app, available for download on Androids, iPhones. Jeff, where's he going?
I don't know.
Jeff doesn't want to be part of the show. I'm out. I'll see you guys later. Nope, no interest.
He was so mad at my intro.
He was wildly offended by the idea that Emerson thought you were going to be good at this. Yeah. We're off to a rip-roaring start. Don't worry, we'll get Jeff back in just a moment. But we do have Anthony, so that's good news. Can't start with Jeff. That's fine. Let's begin with Anthony as we do a little bit of matching salary values here as we get ourselves started. Yeah, I mean, that's what we like to call it. It's you can hashtag it cleanly. It's perfect. This is something. Price check. Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, buddy.
Good to see you. You have an emergency? Was there a fire?
My dog is doing bad dog things right now, so I had to run out and stop him, but it's all good.
You should just pull the Levitan. Let the dog stay. Hang out for a little while. All right, Jeff, let's get on with the show. This is we're down a rabbit hole. First is Russell Wilson, 5,600, down $400, getting into value territory. So what do you think, Ulrich?
I think it's an interesting price, but I mean, you really have to take into account the matchup here. I mean, Arizona is bottom of the league in pace per play, bottom of the league in plays per game, essentially. So the matchup might look good on paper just from a scoring perspective. Teams have put up points against the Cardinals, but this is going to be a really slow-paced game. The price does interest me because it's Russell Wilson, and he can obviously get it done with his legs. He could account for all of the Seattle scoring in this game. And he's done it before, quite frankly, against the Cardinals. He's got a good record against them. So I think it's an interesting spot. I think he's definitely in play this week, but I would temper expectations a little bit. He's not a player I'm looking to go all in on, essentially, but he's got some tournament upside for me.
Anthony, are your expectations tempered for Wilson as well as Jeff's professionalism?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to be. The thing that's worrying me the most about Wilson right now is that he only has 7 rush attempts through 3 games. This is something, this is a guy who last year led the team in rushing. If he's not doing it on the ground as well as in the air, he loses a lot of that dual threat upside that he has. And, like he's saying, like we have a league worst pace game matchup for him. So, tournament option, sure, but I don't think he's a guy you're looking for in cash, and I don't think he's a guy you're looking to give yourself too much exposure to this weekend.
All right, Anthony, let's stick with you. David Johnson, and in that same game, is now down to 6,600. We know he's been void of any production, and if you took him with your first pick in season long, you are severely disappointed. So do you think he returns value against that Seahawks defense?
Yeah, I'm buying this a lot more than the first one. I mean, DJ is obviously disappointed, as you said, to start the year, but almost all of that, I would say, is related to the pace that we've been talking about. He's still carrying a 71% rush attempt share, 17% target share, still really heavily used by this offense. So I think the price now is starting to factor in that pace a lot more. And Arizona's only a 3-point dog at home. They're starting a rookie quarterback in Josh Rosen. I definitely think that this is a game where he could get a lot of run, and that price makes him really tantalizing.
Like Jeff, Johnson's down. He's down 600 going up against actually the Seahawks defense that hasn't been too bad. It's looked surprisingly pretty good over the past 3 weeks. What do you think?
This price is really tempting. I mean, if we'd started the season and said David Johnson at 6,600, I think we'd all be drooling, right? And the matchup is good, Reid. I mean, you're right. They just gave up 7 yards per carry to Ezekiel Elliott last week. And Elliott should have had a 30-yard touchdown passing play in that game too, but he stepped out of bounds like an idiot. So I'm much more tempted to take a chance on David Johnson in this game at this price. I think it's just too attractive. You have to think the Cardinals are going to figure out how to get this guy some production and jumpstart their offense, especially with Josh Rosen. So I like this price on Johnson. I'm going to be in on him in some form or another this week.
Jeff, you like Reid trying to weave in some of his analysis? Like, clearly,
I know. He just
terribly upset that he's not in his other chair right now.
Emerson wrote those words, and I did it. Actually, I did do that. Yeah, I did.
No, he did that.
Guilty.
All right, next up, let's do A.J. Green. A little banged up this week. His salary stayed the same. You paying up for Green against the Falcons here, Anthony? Is the Falcons secondary or defense scare you at all?
No, not really. And, AJ Green practiced in full today, which is awesome to see. This is a secondary for Atlanta that's really banged up. They've lost 2 safeties for the year. They've given up a lot more yards than they did last year, playing that heavy cover 3 defense. AJ Green is always one of the more heavily used receivers in football and still an elite talent. So I think that, especially if people aren't really looking to play him this weekend, which I think it's possible that they don't, he's someone that's going to be heavily used in my player pool.
Jeffrey?
I mean, it's obviously it's a pretty good matchup with the way Atlanta's been trending. They do have some still pretty good corners that are healthy, so that's the one, I guess, downside at this matchup. I look at this, I look at the Bengals offense, and like from a pure DFS DraftKings perspective, I would rather target Gio Bernard or Tyler Eifert here. And I know Tyler Eifert, we talked about, I think it was yesterday. He's more of a tournament play, boom or bust, but at 3,800 in this spot, I really do think he's got a lot of upside potential, and he's just so much cheaper than AJ Green. And you also have Tyler Boyd there. So the value plays on the Bengals offense for me are just more attractive. I also like a couple other receivers around AJ Green's price a little bit more this week. I guess that's me saying I'm probably not going to use him, but I mean, the matchup is fine. It's fine. It's an upside spot with a big game total, right? So,
yeah. Jeff, we'll stay with you. Last but not least, Eagles tight end Zach Ertz is down $600 to $6,200. They travel south to Tennessee. Carson Wentz under center for the second week. Hopefully he does a little bit better. You looking at Ertz this week?
I mean, there's 2 things. Again, Tennessee isn't really a good matchup for opposing teams right now. I mean, their defense has been playing well. They're another team who likes to pace down a little bit. And then the real thing that scares me is Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert, to me, is a more athletic version of Zach Ertz. I think eventually he's going to be the tight end 1 for Philly. Maybe he doesn't take over completely this year, but in the near future. And we saw him split in last week. I mean, it was kind of a big jump for some people, but for people who know Dallas Goedert and have been tracking him since the draft, this isn't that big a shock. I'm not going to pay up for Zach Ertz until his price comes down personally. I'd much rather pay down for Goddard. He's going to be boom or bust until he becomes a set role, but he's a better value in my mind.
Yeah, Anthony,
hot take.
I mean, number 1 tight end for Zachary Ertz. That is a hot take sweatometer. Where's on this side?
That happening?
I know. Anthony, Jeff mentioned it. There are some cheaper options out there. Are you looking at Ertz, or are you going elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, Ertz is in a really interesting price spot because only $800 more. We get Rob Gronkowski this week. And the next cheapest tight end after Ertz is Jimmy Graham down at $4,500. So he's really priced in that elite tier. And I'm not really sure he gets there. I mean, 10 targets in the first 3 games of the season. That's without Alshon Jeffrey. Sounds like he's likely going to play this week. And Ertz saw less than 8 targets per game last year when Alshon was healthy. Just doesn't really seem prudent, I would say, to pay this price for Ertz, given the slop fests that Tennessee tends to play, given the presence of Goddard, and given just some other, I think, better options on the salary board, kind of all over the place at the position this week.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys, listen, sit idly by. Don't go anywhere. We're going to see you again a little bit later on in the show, some over-under, now that we've got price check in the rear view. But how about the baseball brothers?
Pat Mayo here with your Thursday night hot picks for Week 4's opener, Rams-Vikings, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Unlike the skill position void we saw last Thursday, where a backup quarterback made an impact on the winning lineup, we now have too many skill position players to try to squeeze onto one roster. And with so many quality options, figuring out the captain's pick is going to be pretty tough. But I've made my choice, and I'm going with Adam Thielen in the captain's spot. With the Rams banged up in the secondary, Thielen will get another shot to pile up useful fantasy numbers. Excellent fantasy numbers, actually. No one's really paid attention, but Thielen's averaging over 10 catches, almost 15 targets, and over 110 yards through 3 games. The Rams' pass rush is going to force Kirk Cousins to get the ball out pretty quickly. When that's the case, the ball usually ends up in the hands of Adam Thielen. On the Rams side of the ball, we know the receivers are awesome, but it's tough to choose between them. It could be any one on any game. Since that's the case, just take the guy who benefits from all those guys finding pay dirt, Jared Goff. Yeah, he's down a tackle, but this offense just schemes people open every play. Don't expect that to change Thursday night. Plus, it's not like Todd Gurley doesn't accumulate yardage and scores through the air, so Goff's the guy. Those are the Thursday night hot picks for Rams-Vikings. I'm Pat Mayo.
Thank you, Patrick. We are back with our baseball panel, and these boys, they scrapped pretty good last night, so we're going to see what they've got in store for this one. Bukes looks like he cleaned up a little bit. He got a haircut. Steve Buchanan, right out of the Creed 2 trailer, and Gary and Thorne is with us as well. Yesterday, Steve was putting up those Bukes all over the place, but Gary's turn for a segment of his own. It's called Thorne in My Side, and Gary, just so you know, because I don't want you to feel jealous or threatened or whatever it may be, your animation, your special intro animation is not ready yet, but it's in production, and we will have it really soon. We're looking forward to it.
That did him a disservice. Yeah. That's not ready yet. Bukes is already ready and in the rotation.
Well, look, Bukes' came first. Sure. I didn't determine the order. That's just the way it popped out. And, you know, there'll be, maybe it's just that's another thorn in his side.
Well, like us, Bukes is always talking and going on and on about his favorite picks. So, Gary, and we want your top fade, so where would you like to start?
Yeah, let's start with Michael Conforto. And you know what? I don't even really mind not having an opening to this segment. We're all about substance here. This isn't Flash, okay? These are numbers that can't be argued. Michael Conforto has been fantastic in the month of September. I don't think anyone can really deny that. But it's using left-handed bats against Julio Teheran. It's just not something that has worked across the last 2 months because, one, Teheran's been pitching all right, but secondly, and most importantly, all of the struggles he seems to have with left-handed bats come at the expense of control. He walks left-handed bats. That's really all that they can seem to manage. You go back his last 8 starts, he's faced 107 left-handed batters. 5 of those guys have extra base hits. 17 have walked, and that's really consistent with his season-long numbers. He's got a 17.6% walk rate against left-handed bats for the season, where Conforto has one of the top 15 walk rates against right-handed pitching, up at 15%. And he also just doesn't hit that well at Citi Field, just a 169 isolated power. So I really don't think this is a high ceiling spot for Conforto. There's a bit of a floor here. He's going to get on base, but this isn't like a 15, 20-point night for Conforto.
Bukes, you've been uncomfortably quiet and patient. Can we confirm your mic even works? Can you just say a couple of words real quick?
Oh, yeah. I'm here, baby. Don't you worry.
Okay, good.
I'm here. I mean, look, I'm off the Mets tonight because I like Julio Teheran, so, you know, Garen's taking the coward route here. He read the cheat sheet. He knows which direction to go in his stupid segment. But I will say, if there's anybody to consider on the Mets tonight, Conforto has to be that guy. I mean, it's too bad the Mets are as bad as they are, because if they weren't, and they were in playoff contention, we'd be talking about Conforto and how great of a second half he's had. He's had 17 home runs, 15 doubles, 52 runs knocked in the second half. He's averaging almost an RBI a game in the second half right now. And we all know the struggles Teheran has against lefties. It's not just the walks. He does give up power. He gives up the hits there. So if you're going to consider one guy from the Mets, why not Conforto?
Well, it's practically a Buke, if I've ever heard one.
It probably is. Gary, who's your second guy?
Let's talk about Francisco Lindor, because, you know, Glenn Sparkman is just such a great pitcher. No, this really doesn't have anything to do with Glenn Sparkman. This is about Sparkman just being right-handed. I mean, Lindor, it's hard to knock a guy who's really, without question, an American League MVP candidate, but at his price point, you really need to have just a perfect spot to be utilizing Francisco Lindor, and that was last night when Jace Fry, left-handed pitcher, was backed up by Hector Santiago, another left-handed pitcher. Sparkman's right-handed, and if this game script, which could get out of hand for the Indians, kind of goes the Royals' way, the back end of that bullpen is also extremely right-handed heavy. And you go back to the beginning of July for Francisco Lindor, the numbers really aren't that hot. In over 150 plate appearances as a left-handed batter, he's got an isolated power of just 151 and a WRC plus of just 102. Those are league average marks. $5,000 plus is not where you're looking for league average. So I'm just passing on Francisco Lindor tonight.
What do you think, Drago's kid?
I mean, I wasn't even sure how to start my notes here because I had to hear why Gary was just going to fade him. I mean, what don't you like? The 37 home runs, the 90 RBIs?
I told you all the things I don't like.
I'm done.
Continue. My fault.
The 9.5 DK fantasy point average he's doing over his last 10 games. Look, he's definitely not as productive on the road against righties. I will definitely give Gary in that. But we're talking about a 316 WOBA with a 222 isolated power with 13 of those 37 home runs. I wouldn't say it's actually bad numbers across the board. And this Indians lineup can realistically put up 6-7 runs against whomever the hell they want to. It's just that good. And then you got a guy who's hitting in the leadoff position there. This is a tough one. You know why your animation's not done yet? I'm not sure if they want to continue with this segment and putting it on the show. That's why it's taking so long.
See? Look at that. That's what I told you.
Really
I'm here to spark
wrong.
debate.
Yeah, no. Oh, Karen, give us your third one.
Let's talk about Trevor Williams. I mean, Williams has just been crazy good, actually, over the second half of the season. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if anyone really knows what's happening, but he's been good. I'll give the guy that. The problem is on a slate like this, where we're just so devoid of pitching, you know, at his price point above $9,000, you have to get some upside with Trevor Williams. And I think the Cubs are not the type of lineup that really lends itself to his strengths, at least when it comes to upside. I mean, you need strikeouts, and Williams just cannot strike out left-handed batters. Even in this dominant run he's had, he's striking out only 15% of the lefties he is facing. For the entirety of the season, that number is 12.9%, one of the 5 lowest qualified marks in all of baseball. The Cubs are trotting out 5 actual left-handed bats, and just through sheer happenstance, Lester is also a left-handed batter. I just don't see where the upside is coming. If you want to play him in cash, maybe on this 6-game slate you can consider it. But in a GPP, his 21 points are not going to win you a contest.
Did you catch that at the beginning? While Bukes is just playing the role of my grandpa while Grandma's talking, just muttering under his breath.
I don't even think we need to go to Bukes. I think he already gave us his take.
Yeah, I think we already know what he wants.
Bukes, what do you think?
I mean, I don't really get this one. I mean, maybe I'm just missing something here, but let's go over this real quick, okay? First and foremost, the Cubs haven't been hitting for what feels like the entire month of September. Oh, that's right, because they actually haven't at all. They have a 285 WOBA in that span, a 124 isolated power, just a 28 hard hit rate in the same span. Do you know, Garion, how many runs Williams has allowed through the second half? You probably don't, so let me clue you in.
I believe it's 9.
8. It's
Okay.
8. 8 runs through 66 and 2/3 innings. He's walked more guys than runs that he's allowed. So for someone that's still under 10K, we're not talking about like he's 12, 13,000. He's not priced like Max Scherzer. He's 9,300. Are you kidding me? It's a 6-game slate.
28 points to reach value, man. If he throws 6 scoreless innings with 3 strikeouts and even gets the win, that's 22 points.
Look, I have a good relationship with the production team here. Don't make that animation. Don't bother. Waste of time. Do something else, okay? This is just not going to happen.
I love how you start every argument with, I have no idea how you're thinking this, even though I just spent a minute explaining to you why I'm thinking this.
That's true.
And it still doesn't work. I'm still not convinced. You didn't change my mind at all. If you changed my mind, I would say I wiped my script clean. I don't even have to read it. You're right. Not even close.
All right.
I love you, buddy.
No,
I love you, buddy, okay?
Keep going. I'm in no hurry.
No, that's the show. It's over.
We got to go. It definitely backfired on Bukes when he asked that question thinking it was rhetorical and Garion had an answer.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that wasn't ideal. All right, you guys just towel off for a second, and we'll catch up with you a little bit more later in the show. Baseball season, it's winding down. Football, it's just ramping up, just getting going. So let's do some more NFL, all right?
Yeah. Let's welcome back our NFL analyst, DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, now that he's got his dog to sit, from obviously DK Live, and Anthony Amico from the Action Network app that you can
Those
find.
baseball guys are mean, by the way.
A lot of vitriol, a lot of fire.
Yeah.
You can download on iPhones.
Sometimes you're not always that nice there, Jeff.
Jeffrey actually has turned a corner. He is very, very nice now.
When?
Well, not to me.
Yeah, when was that corner turned?
He's never nice to me. He's nice in general, I would think.
I like that he's going for the Jason Statham look right now.
I know, I like it.
Yeah,
I do like it.
He is kind of a
Well,
badass.
I first got to plug the Action Network app, though. You can find it on iPhones, Androids, not BlackBerry.
Jason Statham's going for the Jeff look.
There's a lot of, we create egos here at DK. All right, we teased it earlier. We're going to get to it right now. Over under at these point projections. All right, Jeff, we're going to start with you since, you know, everybody loves you. QB Matt Ryan, he did damage last week against the Saints. Does he have another 25-plus point game against the Bengals coming up in him?
I honestly, I'm the worst Matt Ryan predictor in the history of the universe. Every time I say he's going to have a bad game, he's going to have a monster performance. I'm going to say he's probably going to underwhelm in this spot because how can you possibly top what he's done the last 2 weeks? Rushing for 2 touchdowns, throwing 5 touchdowns against the Saints. It's a pretty good spot on paper. The Bengals haven't really been that good at defense, even though they do have some talent up front and some talent in the secondary, but they're a bottom 10, bottom 8 team in terms of points allowed to the quarterback. So I get why people like it here. They're also 4-point favorites at home. I'm personally going to be off him because, like I said, I always wrong on Matt Ryan, and I'm just not going to use him this week. But so I mean, I guess we'll just play the opposite game. Yeah, he's gonna go over.
So all right. So right. Now I'm getting twisted, Anthony. Does that mean he's going to be under? Where are you here?
I'm going to have a lot more conviction here on this one.
Yeah,
I'm going to say under. I mean, I just Matt Ryan has been awesome the last 2 weeks, but he's just doing not Matt Ryan things. Like, he doesn't throw 5 touchdowns in games. He doesn't rush for 2 touchdowns in games. He didn't have a single 25-point game on DraftKings all of last season. So the idea that he's going to come out and for the 3rd straight week do that, I'm just not really buying it. The Bengal defense, not nearly as banged up as Atlanta's is. And obviously Ryan offers very little on the ground when he's not, lucking into 2 rushing touchdowns. So I'm going to hit the under on him.
I like this. We're both Matt Ryan non-believers, so this is
people told me that Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't going to throw for 400 yards last week, and stuff happens, man.
I do like the Matt Ryan things. He's not doing Matt Ryan things. Like, he has things that he does and does not do. I appreciate that. But now going to the only show in Jerry's world, Zeke Elliott for 20 fantasy points this week against Seattle. We talked about Seattle's defense earlier. Jeff, what do you think?
I'm definitely going over here. I mean, this is just too good a matchup not to take the over. I mentioned Zeke Elliott off the top in the last segment. He would have gone way over last week, except he stepped out of bounds on a 30-yard touchdown. Now he gets Detroit, averaging 150. Opposing RBs are averaging 150 yards on the ground versus them. I know they had a good week against the Patriots, but that was just a blowout game, nothing. I mean, the fact they held them to like under 100 yards doesn't really mean much. They have a bad run defense. Zeke is averaging really good yards per carry, put up 7 yards per carry last week. This is a great matchup. I think he's going to go way over.
Anthony, we talked about Seattle's defense, and now they're without Sean Lee. Does that open up stuff on Detroit's side and maybe potentially more production for Zeke in the pass game? We've seen his targets go up there. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Zeke's averaging 6 targets per week through the first 3 games, much better than what he was doing last year. And, while Dallas has maybe not pass blocked as well as they have in years past, they're still a top 6 run blocking unit, according to Pro Football Focus. Detroit is bottom 6 in run stopping per PFF and 30th in adjusted line yards allowed, according to Football Outsiders. We know Dallas definitely wants to lean on their ground game. Their pass weapons aren't that great. I'm expecting heavy usage for Zeke, and this is really a smash spot for him. I'm definitely going to be pushing my chips in on him this week.
How about DeAndre Hopkins? He's quietly averaging over 18 DK fantasy points. Do you see him putting up 20 in a potential shootout at Indy, Anthony?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Colts have been better on defense, but still not great. Their corners aren't stellar. And this game features 2 teams inside the top 5 of pace, so I'm expecting a high-scoring game. And, I mean, let's face it, Houston has to get off the deck here. They need a win. I love the Texans to feature Hopkins and to score points, and for Hopkins to obviously be a part of that.
About 15 for him last week, Jeff. He's $8,400. You think he's going to hit this?
I'm going to take the under here. I'm a bit of a believer in the Colts' resurgence in defense here. I mean, they recorded a bunch of sacks last week. They've been solid through 3 games too. I mean, this is a unit that most people thought would just be an easy target all year, but they're playing well. I think DeAndre Hopkins also maybe not hurt a little bit, but Will Fuller has taken over such the sort of stretch of the field role, and he's such a favorite target of Deshaun Watson. I think it has cut into his touchdown upside a little bit. Now, Hopkins has had massive games with Fuller in the lineup, so it's not like he can't go off with Fuller. But I'm going to say under here based mainly off the matchup. Again, the Colts are playing better than most people realize, so I think this is a tougher spot than people think.
The man's dealing with thumb, ankle, and hamstring injuries.
None of those are important. It's totally fine.
Need to recreate the poor man. Bionic man him.
I know. Jeez, none of that, I like that. None of those are important. Well, on to more important things, especially here in our backyard. One of Gronk's brothers is now speaking on his behalf, saying he's frustrated with the Pats' offense. So is this guy to my right. But Rob Gronkowski has totaled 12.6 DK fantasy points over the last 2 games. Jeff, do you think he breaks this streak and goes for more than that, or 15 points against Finns?
First of all, Which Gronkowski brother was it?
It was Chris. Chris needs to keep his mouth shut.
Do you know all the Gronkowski brothers' names? Kaufman?
No, I don't. There are like 5 of them. And then Gordy, the dad, he's an animal. It doesn't matter.
You're fine.
Yoga with one
okay.
once.
I'm going to take the over here. Look, I mean, Gronkowski can hit this point total over 15 points in so many ways. PPR, over 100 yards, catches 2 touchdowns, and he's put up massive games against the Dolphins. Look, again, a couple days ago, we talked about the Patriots, this spot. I think they're going to bounce back here. I don't believe, like most people do apparently, that this is the end of the Patriots, that all of a sudden their offense is just talentless. I think this is a great bounce back spot for Gronk. I know the Dolphins have an emerging secondary. They still have not faced like a top 10 offense or a top 10 team in the league yet. So I'm going to take the over on Gronk. I do think he's going to have a big week.
Anthony, what do you think? Rashad Jones was a late scratch last week. He's still questionable a little bit. So what do you think Gronk does against Miami?
I'm going to take the under here. I mean, I love Gronk. I love most things Patriots in terms of their offense, but this is not typically the kind of game that Gronk dominates. If you look at the Fantasy Labs trends tool, see that Gronk has a negative 2.52 plus minus in games where the Patriots are at least a touchdown favorite.
Gross.
So this is not really the kind of spot where he usually dominates. I think it's going to be the Sony Michel show this weekend with Rex Burkhead out. I think this is a breakout spot for him.
Rob, Chris, Glenn, and Dan. Just so you know, Jeff, I looked that up
If
real
it was
quick.
Dan,
Hard-hitting
I would've
journalism
said
right
Yeah,
there.
Ed Gordy again is the dad. All
Jeff,
right,
Jeff said if it was Dan, then
no, it was Chris. No, it was not Dan. So don't worry. All right, it's gonna do it for NFL. Thanks, guys. At least for now, anyway. I can't keep up with you people, but stick around because we're gonna need you for Thursday night picks before tonight's game. That's a big one. We're going to talk NHL next. Season opener is less than a week away before we get to the slate breaker himself. But first, let's hear what Pat Mayo has to say about his top receiver options for Week 4.
Everyone in this area is just going to turn to Sterling Shepard. He's getting a lot of buzz early on in the week. We've already seen that the Saints are down DBs at this point. They have Marshawn Lattimore, and that is now it. Their defense wasn't good to begin with. No Evan Ingram. That's going to funnel more targets towards Sterling Shepard. We saw that at the end of the Texans game last week. He's a very reasonable price. Is he good chalk or bad chalk?
I don't want to say he's bad chalk because I get it, and I'm going to play some, but I totally see the appeal of trying to bump up a little. Everyone... I was talking about, I like those running backs. I like Odell. He's a perfect piece to use in a stack because he's not super expensive. That's going to add to the appeal. A lot of people will probably pair up, Eli and him and run it back with a Kamara or Michael Thomas. I may do that here and there, but all in all, I don't think I'm going to let that guy define my week. Right now, my plan is maybe I take 20-ish%, have them in certain spots, use them maybe in cash, and just get out of there. I'm not going to overload myself. No reason for me to full fade or anything like that. I don't think it's that kind of play because I think the floor is good. But 4,900, no Ingram. It seems pretty promising.
And people are going to just look on the DraftKings system and see that juicy green 32nd and next to opponent rank and kind of go with that. I think the one thing that will save his ownership from getting out of control are all the people that will want to play Calvin Ridley at exactly the same price.
That's a guy I'm not messing around with. I'm still waiting and seeing. I think what we saw, we've seen the range, obviously. He did nothing in Week 1, and he's not eclipsing that game. Where he truly falls remains to be seen. So that's a spot where I'm way more apt to completely full fade, not go there. Maybe if I make a Falcon stack or something, I throw him in, but he's a guy that I think you could get pretty good leverage if you take a more radical approach to him.
So a lot of people are going to go to Geronimo Allison in this range too, just because he caught a touchdown last week, and everyone who watched the Skins and the Packers game, that Randall Cobb just kept dropping passes all over the field. And maybe in this game script, maybe he doesn't see above double-digit targets again. But 2 out of 3 weeks, Cobb has been above double-digit targets, including 11 last week, 2 really bad drops, only ended up with 4 receptions. People have soured on him. I feel like this $5,000 range at receiver, maybe it's not the best spot to target because maybe you want to go down low, save that money, and pay up at running back. But it really does seem like a dead range, and it does feel like there is a lot of opportunity here. And the best part is all these guys are going to come in so lowly owned that you don't need to have much of them if you're playing like 10, 20 lineups.
Yeah, I see the appeal there too. And that's an important distinction. You can take, say you're playing 20 lineups, you can put him on 3 out of 20, get 15%, and 2x, 3x the field on some of these guys. So it doesn't take a huge stance to get multiple of them. Some are not going to play well, but one or two may have a big game. Cobb's another one. I know I'm kind of peppering this range with Lockett. I don't mind that. Randall Cobb's a guy. I also biasly, I tend to get him right. There's certain guys like that, kind of like Russell Henley in the golf world. But the targets are there. I think we see a pretty reasonable script for him in the sense that the opportunities will be there. The ownership is souring. No problem with taking an overweight stance.
All right, let's get off the gridiron, get to the ice here for a second. How about a little puck talk? That's right, hockey season's coming faster than a slap shot, so here come the Action Network's Joe Holka and DK's Ben Zwyman. You can find the Action Network on your iPhone and Android by downloading the app, by the way, so you should make sure you do that. Zwyman, nice of you to take some time out of your evening before your date. Good to see you.
Yes.
Go ahead, Zwyman. I told him not to mention it.
Hey, a gentleman never asks, the lady never tells you guys. You'll have to wait to find out.
Opposite.
No, I'm going with Zwyman here. He's a slate broker himself. So prices are out for opening night, boys. So it's salary reveal time. John Tavares will make his Leafs debut against the Habs. He's $7,400. Do you like that price for a motivated Tavares debuting in his hometown, Joe?
Here we go. Yeah, I think it's a reasonable price for sure. Tavares, 3.11 shots per game over the past year. Montreal is a team that allowed the 12th most shots against last year. Pretty much like any slate, though, it's going to kind of depend on lineup construction. Still think I prefer the safety that comes with paying up at defenseman with guys like Brent Burns, Carlson, maybe slightly cheaper, someone like John Carlson. So it's going to kind of depend on what kind of value opens up. But I think, yeah, 7,400 is pretty reasonable for a debut.
Ben, you look fantastically handsome. I appreciate you taking the time. What do you think, bud?
I like JT if you're into narratives. I'm actually looking more to pay down for Austin Matthews in this spot at 7,000. He's also going to be on the power play. If we're going even further, Nazem Kadri at 5,100 is in a great spot. He's been getting a lot of power play, first power play time so far in the preseason. They actually played Montreal last night. They scored 2 power play goals. That was Matthews and Kadri, not John Tavares. So I'm actually paying down. I don't know if I'd fade JT entirely, but I do think you can get a lot better value from Kadri. And I think Matthews just has more of the goal-scoring upside than JT.
You know, there are some great top wing options here with Boston and Washington. You think about a couple of guys who know how to celebrate after winning cups, tell you that. I mean, Twitter went crazy. Alex Ovechkin, Brad Marchand as well. Ovi's $8K, highest skater on the slate. Marshy's $6,700. So, good targets here, slate breaker. What do you think?
I mean, Ovechkin, you always have to consider him, but I think at 8,000, it's kind of tough. Ideally, he's more of a cash game play, but 8,000, you're already paying that much for him, plus a goalie. That's a lot of salary cap. Marchand, on the other hand, 6,700, pretty good price. Patrice Bergeron's supposed to be healthy for this game. I don't know if he's 100%, but he's still one of the better two-way centers in the league. So Marchand, you're going to get him on the power play. I think you get a decent ceiling from Marchand, and again, the price is appealing. I actually like the Bruins a lot as a GPP stack heading into opening night. Obviously, it's a little early, but Ovechkin, I don't know if I'm fading him completely, but more of a cash game play.
Where do you see the ceiling, Joe?
Yeah, again, in cash games, more looking towards some of those higher-priced defensemen in general. Ovechkin's kind of the outlier when it comes to that, just because of the volume that he has as far as his shots. So I think at 8K, he's definitely going to be a guy I'm considering if I do go with the route, kind of stars and scrubs on opening night. It's really going to depend kind of on value. In terms of him versus Marchand, just in general, 4.22 shots per game for Ovi, 2.62 for Marchand. Not a guy I'm usually targeting, even in the mid-range. I think there's just a lot better options that are going to give you a better shot floor. Guys like Brock Besser at 6,300, Evander Kane at 6,100. I think Marchand makes a lot more sense if you're going to stack up that game with Bergeron, but just kind of as a one-off play, I'm not really there.
I'm also chasing Joe's minimalist approach to his room. No frills. I love it. Get all of that clutter out of there. It's perfect, bud. So the Sharks' blue line is loaded now. Brent Burns is 7,100. New acquisition, Erik Karlsson, 6,900. Who's the play here, Ben?
If I had to choose, I'd probably go with Burns. He's got the shot volume. You don't really have to worry about Karlsson sort of getting used to his teammates. Like, Burns has been there for a while, so the chemistry is there. Carlson also hasn't played this preseason for the Sharks, so a little bit concerning. Not sure how their power play will look, but if Burns is in there ahead of Carlson potentially, then that would be another red flag. I'm not crazy about paying up at defense. I'm usually a guy that's going to pay down, get a high floor defenseman for cheap. Alexander Edler's a guy that I like a lot on the slate at 5,200. I want to get a piece of that Maple Leafs power play, so Morgan Riley is definitely in consideration. Jake Gardiner also a play there. I'd probably lean Burns, though, if I had to choose.
Joe, you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I guess that's where we differ a little bit. I think you can even consider playing both these guys at times, kind of in a similar way as football. You're paying up for running backs with volume. You can do the same thing with some of these elite defensemen. Brent Burns, 99th percentile in shots plus blocks last year. Carlson right behind him in the 97th percentile. I think some of these prices, 7,100, 6,900, I think could end up looking like values relative to kind of the peripheral stats that they're going to offer us. There's a chance that they're not going to be on the same pairing, obviously, and even strength, but they should see a decent amount of power play time together. So I don't even mind the idea of playing both.
All right, well, Carey Price, he's $7,000, one of the lower price goalies. So, Joe, would you take a flyer on him? Maybe kicking off a bounce back season. Let's go right back to the Army barracks here.
Yeah, I mean, talking about trying to get all these studs in, you're going to have to get salary somewhere. So paying down a goaltender, definitely something I'm going to have to consider. I actually think he might be relatively contrarian against this Toronto team, who a lot of people are probably going to be on. We talked about some of the narratives there. Just in general, for Montreal, kind of would personally like to see Price get off to a rough start, so we see a little more of Charlie Lindgren, St. Cloud State guy. So hoping to see him get a couple more games this year.
Benji, what do you have?
Benji?
Yeah, like Joe said, he's a GPP play in my eyes. 7,000. He's still Carey Price, right? He's an MVP. He's won the Vezina. So obviously he's got the pedigree, but the Habs not very good in front of him. So, yeah, I mean, you could take a flyer on him because, again, you sort of need to get that salary cap relief to pay up at defense or at wing or center. But, yeah, I'm sort of kind of not thinking it's a great idea just because the Maple Leafs will probably come out and smash them.
All right, Ben Swyman, your slate-approved pick for the preseason slate. Who you got? Who's your lock for tonight's 5 game?
I'm so ready for the preseason end, but I'm going with Brett Seney, the Devils' fourth liner. He's fighting for a rock spot at 4,000 tonight against the Jets. So he's looked good, so I'm going with him.
Joe, hit us with your stamp of approval.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Kind of just looking at the Blackhawks in general at home against Ottawa. Some young guys are going to be in this lineup still. So I think in general, if you just kind of put your chips against Ottawa almost every night, you're going to kind of come out ahead in the long run. So basically just going to see how many Blackhawks I can get in tonight.
So I'm going to be hard to follow the games while you're on your hot date tonight, buddy. We hope you have a great time. Hey, Joe, real quick, you have any advice for him other than changing his shirt?
Hey, I got the other shirt right over here, guys. We're all set.
Yeah, that's probably the first thing, but I don't know. I think he looks pretty good. He's trimmed up the beard a little bit, so I think he's
You look fantastic, buddy. Don't ever change. There, slate approved.
Yeah,
don't listen to us.
It's going to be a hell of a night. All right, we'll see you guys a little bit later on. The baseball guys, they're coming back in a moment. It's fitting, though, that we jump to the diamond right now with a fantasy flash.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. We just need to take a minute to look at the ridiculous season that was just put together by Mets ace Jacob deGrom. This is not hyperbole when we say this was one of the best seasons by a pitcher in MLB history. deGrom finished 2018 with a major league leading 1.7 ERA with 217 innings of work. That makes him just the 6th pitcher since 1933 to complete a season with an ERA of 1.7 or lower with at least 215 innings pitched. Oh, and that 269 strikeouts are the best of that bunch. And as you would expect, deGrom's also been a DFS darling as he's averaged 27.1 DK points per game, which is currently the highest among pitchers this season. So while deGrom may not have been able to help the Mets contend this season, the Cy Young Award candidate has no doubt been a stud in your fantasy lineups.
Well, I've been told by the voices in my head, which are our producers, I'm not that crazy, that this segment needs no introduction. So cue that animation, guys.
Look at this guy.
And Kaufman told me to introduce this segment as the worst on the sweat that's hated by many. But I've seen it too many times, Fuchs, that it's loved by many and hated by none.
Look at how skeptical Bukes is of that. He knows I would never say such a thing about
Gary
the Put Up
knows
Your
that,
Buke
though.
segment. I mean, I'll crap on the two of them from time to time, but the open's terrific. Bukes, you know the drill. Give us your 3 picks with projections. Garion, you can give your maybe not so humble opinion. Bukes, who's first?
Yeah, sorry, I gotta move this segment along. Wyman should be here to pick me up any minute.
No.
So we're gonna start with
one of you better change your shirt then. It'll look
25
terrible.
DK fantasy points. I was feeling a little bit froggy with this one, but I think it's possible. I mean, he's had a brutal second half, which is truly a shame because actually I like this kid a lot. I've really been a big fan of him for a while now, and he's kind of straightened out a little bit in September. 233 WOBA so far. And look, the Rangers have never been a strong team against lefties. They got 5 in the lineup tonight. 310 WOBA against them with a 158 isolated power. Some of their big bats, they just simply can't get them out of the lineup because they are lefty. Joey Gallo, Mazzara, Shin-Soo Choo, all guys are going to be in that lineup tonight. So I think this could be a good spot for Gonzalez. It's a small slate, so he might end up being forced into your lineup if you don't want to pay all that money for Trevor Williams tonight. But, yeah, Gonzalez, take a shot.
It's hard to know where to start. Garrett, your reply, sir, your rebuttal.
Well, I set out to be more cordial in this segment, so I first want to say
I don't want that. That's bad for ratings.
Well tonight, I hope you guys get the grande-sized chalupas. I mean, I best for the both of you. When it comes to Marco Gonzalez, I'm kind of with Steve here. I really, really tailed this guy a lot early in the season. I like him. He's pitched well. We know he has the ability to pitch well. It hasn't been pretty a lot across his last 6 starts. 387 WOBA allowed in that time frame, and only striking out 16% of the batters he sees. But Steve really hit the nail on the head when he talked about Texas's lineup construction. They just have too many left-handed bats to really ever be out of your consideration when it comes to them facing a lefty. I mean, they have almost 150 more left-on-left plate appearances than any other team in baseball. And in those 875 plate appearances, they've struck out 29% of the time. It's just such obvious ceiling. And on a slate like this, where there's few guys to trust, I think Gonzalez kind of falls into that class.
All right, Bukes, I'm afraid to ask, but give us your second pick, bud.
Yeah, we're going to go with Jose Ozuna for 16 DK fantasy points. I mean, talk about a fantastic cheap option. I mean, you can say, I'm very interested to see how Garen's going to try to disregard this one because I don't feel like it's even possible. He's like $3,100 tonight. I mean, you can't get any cheaper. It's like the bottom of the barrel. And all this guy is useful for is hitting lefties. Otherwise, just sit your ass down. You don't do anything else. 2 seasons in the major, 324 WOBA with a 227 isolated power against lefties. And he's on a nice little run lately. 8.5 DK fantasy points over his last 5 games. I mean, like I said, he's so cheap. He's $3,100. He doesn't need to do much for him to repay his salary here. So, Ozuna, baby. Try to beat that, Garion.
Garion?
I mean, it's nice to get to pick up little value plays. You don't have to argue $5,000 All-Stars and what stuck. But, no, I can't argue this. You're right. He's hitting third, and he's $3,100. I mean, I guess the thought process here, the only thing I would worry about is if they get into that bullpen early, and Ozuna would probably be a factor in that, so this isn't even that bad a scenario or a game script. But when he does face right-handed pitching, as Steve alluded to, he's nothing. He's absolute garbage. I mean, he's got a 294 ISO against left-handed pitching this season. That drops to .022, which is not a number I thought existed in terms of isolated power against right-handed pitching. So you better hope he gets his early because it's not coming late off this bullpen.
I'm starting to think that this show happens directly opposite when Bukes would prefer to be having dinner, and he just comes in hangry.
Yeah, that's a good assessment.
Every time. Yeah. It's just agitated. All right there, Mike Tyson wannabe. Who's your third and final pick?
For the record, Wyman said it was going to be Mexican tonight, so I'm ready. So, let's go with Jorge Polanco for 14 DK fantasy points. I mean, this is just a great night for guys who are suspended. I wrote up Robinson Cano in the cheat sheet. Now we're going to talk about Polanco. I mean, first and foremost, it's a team against Francisco Liriano. So already, I know you're interested and your eyes just perked up. Polanco entered this game averaging 12 DK fantasy points over his last 10 games. 3 doubles, 2 home runs, a triple in that span while knocking in 10. Liriano against righties, oh boy, ugly. 358 WOBA, 35% hard hit rate. And then if you think Liriano gets knocked out of this game early, which probably good chance, Polanco is even stronger against righties. His numbers way better against righties, so it sets you up nicely later in this game. We'll talk about a double whammy there. Polanco, come on, baby. He's back from suspension. He's hitting. Let's go.
Garen, your third and final rebuttal. What do you think?
Rebuttal.
Again, it's a good pick. I mean, I think that you look at a lot of these lineups tonight, we're dealing with just not good teams. And when you have guys priced like they're priced towards the top of lineups, I mean, really the second and third spot in lineups are the most crucial to DFS roster construction, and Polanco's hitting second tonight. Like Steve said, he's not actually been good against lefties this season. I think he glossed over this a little bit, but like a 59 WRC plus, a 262 WOBA, those are like AAA numbers. But it gets better when he gets to face right-handed pitching, which he should get to do because Francisco Liriano should retire. Like, is this the last we're going to see of Francisco Liriano in the majors? Maybe. He's bad, and the season's almost over. So let's celebrate by stacking Twins.
All right, you two.
Hey, Reid, can you do me a favor?
What's up,
Reid,
buddy?
can you do me a favor? Is there a broom in the room? Because I think that was just a clean sweep.
I can't.
It's amazing he doesn't hurt himself patting himself on the
I know.
back.
It's a surprise
It's
that he
just
hasn't
effortless,
stretched
just
before.
all the time.
Well, I was going to mention both of these guys have adopted the Lamarca lighting. So slate approved picks.
I know, you're both terrible.
I know. Garen, you first,
awful.
Look, I got limited options here.
Did the sun already go down? What time is it?
Oh yeah, it's pitch black, man.
Yeah, man, it's East Coast. Garrett Cole. I'm paying up for Garrett Cole tonight. Pitching is awful. I'll find the ways. I'll find the Jose Osunas to make my lineup work. Just get Garrett Cole into your lineups.
Bukes, if it's not Zweiman, who's your slate approved?
I'm pretty sure that game got postponed already. Did it not?
Did it? Oh Jesus!
So,
this
look at him
sucks.
grinning. He was waiting for that one.
Yeah. Hey, so Garrett Cole, do that one, okay? You know what? Just to spite Garrett, I'm gonna go with Trevor Williams tonight. He's gonna win somebody at GPP.
These two.
Can we double
All
slate
right,
approve?
guys. I
Butts?
know.
All right, guys. Always entertaining. You're a pleasure. We'll see you later, maybe if you get better lighting. But before we get back to our NFL guests, talking about who they like in the Thursday night showdown between the Rams and Vikings, first, Levitan's Leverage. I had the opportunity to chat with him a little bit earlier on today. So here's more of me with another guy named Adam and see if you can tell us apart. It's everyone's favorite time of the week, Levitan's Leverage with Adam Levitan. The written version appears in the DK Playbook. You should check it out. But if you're not into reading, well, the man speaks too. Levy, how's it going?
If this is the highlight of people's week, they have some really pathetic weeks going on.
Yeah, I guess I should be more specific. Highlight of my week within the shows. Maybe outside of that, it's a little more exciting. But listen, you like a few guys this week above the rest. Let's begin with Sterling Shepard. Giants home against the Saints. Worst team in the NFL opposite receivers. Shepard exploded for 20 DK points in week 3. Looks like the red zone role may even expand with Evan Ingram still out. $5,000 seemed like a good buy?
Yeah, you're taking all my points here in the intro. I mean, this is a home run spot.
You'd dive into all the extra analysis. I'm just giving you facts.
This is a home run spot for Sterling Shepard. Expect Marshawn Lattimore to shadow Odell Beckham, and we've seen how many problems the Saints have opposite Marshawn Lattimore. They've been playing musical chairs with Ken Crawley, with P.J. Williams. Also, when Sterling Shepard goes into the slot, their slot corner, Patrick Robinson, broke his ankle last week. He'll be out. So as you mentioned, with Evan Ingram out, we can start to project more target share towards Sterling Shepard. He has a really awesome matchup. He's only 4,900. It's hard to get away from Sterling Shepard this week.
Let's see if I can read off your notes again on Tyler Eifert here. The Bengals, they're in the ATL, the tight end, trending up after a 13-point performance in Carolina. 8 targets, caught 6 of them, $3,800. And this one I know I'm taking from you because I saw you tweet it. He's got a sweet mullet.
Yeah. This is a mullet that would make hockey players like Jaromir Jagr would be jealous about the mullet that Tyler Eifert has going on. But really, it's always been about health for Tyler Eifert. When he's been healthy, he has been one of the best red zone producers in the entire league. And I think the best way to beat the Falcons is in the middle of the field. And that was always the case, but it's particularly the case with Ricardo Allen, their free safety, Keanu Neal, their strong safety, Deion Jones, their middle linebacker, all out with injuries. So with Tyler Eifert playing almost all the snaps where Andy Dalton throws now, it makes a lot of sense to get on Eifert where he's still only 3,800.
The real problem with helmets is you don't get to see the mullet during games. I mean, I guess they protect against concussions for the most part, so that's a good thing. But I'd really like to see the hair.
Yeah, get away. Kaufman just said no more helmets in the NFL. He wants these guys to die.
That's exactly. Also an owner's guy, as Levy will tell you. Hey, Browns in Oakland. That means Jarvis Landry is too. $7,400 wideout. He went 8 for 103 in a rare Cleveland win. Worked well with new starter Baker Mayfield as well. And the Raiders, similar to a team we already talked about, just horrendous against wideouts.
Yeah, the big thing for me is Baker Mayfield taking over. And I liked Jarvis Landry all season because he's playing this kind of Antonio Brown-ish role for Todd Haley. Obviously, Todd Haley used to be the coordinator for the Steelers. Now he's the offensive coordinator for the Browns. And Jarvis Landry kind of plays this role, and he's just so good. But with Baker Mayfield there, the aggression will be ticked up. The vertical passing will be ticked up. More stuff over the middle. You know, Tyrod Taylor like to be really careful with the ball on the sidelines, tuck it and run a lot. So I think there'll be more opportunities for Jarvis Landry. He's appropriately priced at $7,400, but still a big chance here for Jarvis Landry to get on him as Baker takes over.
All right, make sure you read Levitan's leverage or he's probably going to stop coming back. We don't want that. Thanks, Levy.
All right, good luck.
Thanks, buddy. That's good.
My pleasure. He's always a delight. Thank you.
Yeah, we can keep the football convo going with Jeff Ulrich and the Action Network's Anthony Amico. You can check him out on the app or actually right here.
Yeah, they switched sides.
Oh,
nice. Good to see you guys again. All right, we need some Thursday night picks, fellas, because we are rapidly approaching kickoff for tonight's action. There is a captain showdown contest for the Rams-Vikings game. So, Jeff, who is your captain's choice?
I mean, I looked at this. I definitely want a piece of the Rams offense in this game. And I think if you're going to cash games, I'd probably just go with Jared Goff. But I think for GPPs, Brandon Cooks is the play I want. He came so close to 2 touchdowns last week, took a screen pass to the 3-yard line, got tackled on the 1-yard line. He's been exactly as advertised for the Rams. And yeah, people are going to view this matchup and say, well, it's Minnesota. They have a really good defense. But the Rams have been cutting through everyone. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league. I think Jared Goff is going to have the time to get the ball to Cooks. Cooks is too fast, quite frankly, for Xavier Rhodes, even if Rhodes does cover him. So I think Brandon Cooks, especially for those big GPPs, is the captain's pick for me.
What do you say there, Action Anthony?
I'm going with Stephon Diggs. Keep Talib is on injured reserve. Marcus Peters is active tonight but banged up, so I'm not really sure he's going to play a full complement of snaps tonight. So I think Diggs is going to see plenty of good old pal Sam Shields, who he routinely torched as a member of the Green Bay Packers. Thielen gets a solid slot corner, and Nickel Roby-Coleman. I think the Vikings are going to feature Diggs tonight. I like him as my captain.
Interesting no one mentioned Todd Gurley. I mean, if you look at Buffalo, they did do some stuff on the ground against the Minnesota Vikings. But interesting little piece there. All right, guys, who's the best value play of the night? Anthony, start us off.
I'm going with Tyler Higbee. He's down at just at 2,600, but he's playing 86% of the snaps right now for the Rams. Only 4 targets so far to start the year, but in a game where I expect the Rams to score, I think Higbee could get you a cheap touchdown, which obviously we've seen on these slates. That's enough to win you a big prize, so I like Higbee tonight.
Jeff, you like that call? You going Cup? Where are you going?
I absolutely like Higbee, so much to the point I was going to talk about Tyler Higbee too, but I mean, he makes a ton of sense in this matchup. I think you can also go with Kyle Rudolph, though. I mean, the Rams have been actually pretty giving to the tight end position, especially as we saw in Week 1. Rudolph has been consistently the third man targeted by Kirk Cousins so far. And Steph Diggs is a little bit banged up too, so that's definitely a possibility. The other option you could go to, I think, and it'll be a bit more contrarian, is the Rams defense. Yeah, they're banged up at corner, but that front D line could definitely score enough points to be a factor tonight.
Yeah, even Mark Barron, the inside linebacker who hasn't played it down yet, usually covers those tight ends. I think it's a good call, Jeff. Very nice. I like that. Stamp of approval. Wish I had the slate approved.
You can take the analyst out of the chair, right? Or the other way around.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. All right, either of these defenses interest you guys at all, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, I'm not actually super high on either defense. Then I think for captains, I think it's a good showdown to fade them because we have a 49-point team total. The Rams defense is banged up. I'm expecting a shootout, but if I was going to go one way or the other, I would go with the Rams. They still have a ton of talent up front. Aaron Donald is like Khalil Mack. He could blow up this game himself with like a fumble, sack, touchdown, recovery, etc. So that's the way I would go. Personally, I think it's okay. I think you can maybe like put a kicker in there because I'm expecting a lot of points. I'm actually excited for a Thursday night game for once. So,
Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jeff. I think the game's going to feature a lot of scoring, and if you're going to play a defense, it has to be the Rams. The Vikings offensive line, it's been really troubling to start the year. We saw that last weekend against the Bills. And even if the Vikings score points tonight, I think they're definitely going to have to do it through the air. It means a lot of passing, so chances for sacks, takeaways, touchdowns for LA. So I think if you're going to play a defense tonight, I don't think you have to, but I think if you're going to, it's going to be the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the Rams defense, look, Minnesota is going to be heavily owned. If you think that narrative is out there that they just got embarrassed by Buffalo, right? Buffalo's probably, that was probably their Super Bowl, right? So if you look at that Minnesota defense.
How far they've fallen after making the playoffs last year.
Like Xavier Rhodes, these guys, Eric Hendricks, the line, like the defensive line is going through some trouble, obviously with Daniel Hunter, I believe, or Everson Griffin, one of the two, having some mental health issues. So they're now carouseling guys into that defensive line. This is a Super Bowl contending defense. So I think a lot of people are going to be on that narrative. And with the injuries to, I almost said St. Louis Rams, to the LA Rams, I think it's a good call. Yeah.
We can do kickers in a second, guys, just to obviously, fill out our lineups a little bit. Before we do that, though, sort of take a flip side approach. Is anyone out there running the risk of outsmarting themselves at all? I mean, who's a guy that you just want to stay away from, even regardless of price? You just don't think they're going to mix into the game flow quite as well, Anthony?
I mean, I think that if there's a guy like that, it's possible that it's Gurley. I mean, I think that Gurley is going to score points, but I think in these captain showdown slates, you really have to consider price. I mean, he's 17.4K to fit in your captain slot, 11.6 overall. I think there's a lot of really nice pieces in this game. I'm not sure that you need to have Gurley to win. Maybe in a cash game you do, but I'm not sure you need Gurley to win a big prize tonight in GBP.
Jeff?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Gurley. I also kind of agree that maybe one of Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp I could see getting contained in this game. The Vikings do have a pretty good secondary. It all depends on matchups. If Trey Waynes covers Woods, I still like Woods. Mike Hughes has been pretty good in the slot for the Vikings. And Cooper Kupp, he's kind of been productive. He's been a good cash game play. I could see him having a slower game and Cook's just zipping around the field and being the really productive one. That's why I like him for the upside in GPPs. I think Kupp might be a player to stay away from this week for me personally. He's been really effective to this point. But like I said, it's a tougher matchup than it looks like on paper.
All right, Jeff, are you playing the newly acquired Dan Bailey, obviously one of the most accurate kickers when he was with the Cowboys, but do you like him in Minnesota, or are you looking at kicker, maybe the backup at the Rams?
Did he even get a chance last week?
The old Bailey versus Ficken matchup on Thursday Night Football. I mean,
Showdown.
Hey, we got to dive into the kickers now. I don't know much about Sam Ficken. He really didn't look good last week. I mean, I think he missed a kick or something. But as far as the Rams, they're projected for 7 more points in this game, right? So he's got to have some pretty good upside in this matchup. If I really was down and you forced me to pick one kicker,
that's what
I
we're
would
doing
just
here, yeah.
Just based on that alone. Obviously, Bailey is historically accurate. He's in an offense. Mike Zimmer's a bit more of a conservative coach. So I think that in both scenarios, I could see them both paying off. And maybe you just play them both. And like I said, fade the defenses. But gun to my head, I'm playing Ficken just because of the fact he's on the Rams.
Anthony, you agree, or do you think the Rams just go for 2-point conversions every single time like they did last time?
I mean, Ficken's going to kick extra points. I'm sure of that. I mean, he probably only has to make one field goal to be a really good play tonight. Certainly he's going to have his chances. At some point tonight, the Vikings are going to have to not kick a field goal and score touchdowns because I expect them to be trailing in this game. So I'll go with Ficken as well.
Well, you guys are both making me feel like crap because I needed a kicker for my season long, and I was debating between those two guys, and I went with Bailey.
Well, that's why we do this show for your season long, just to get,
Yeah, well, it's like therapy for me. It's fantasy football therapy.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, guys, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Great to take time with you.
Thanks, Kaufman. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for sticking around for the rest of the show, Jeff. You can go back and play with your dog now.
Hey,
he's eating the Cheerios out of my cupboard as we speak.
All right, we'll see you later, guys.
Cheerios. That was plain Cheerios. Yeah. So, what'd you learn?
Well, I learned that Jeff has a dog. I didn't know that. First of all, I'm kind of excited actually for NHL to get going.
Yeah.
We haven't had the opportunity with baseball winding down, with football just ramping up. We haven't had that opportunity to start to dive into some of our NHL segments, and these guys are very good at what they do. As Wyman, I was bugging all throughout last year for fantasy advice, so I can guarantee these guys know what they're talking about, and so it's rapidly approaching here. We've got less than a week.
I know. One thing I learned, don't tell anyone in the studio and the production team that
you
you're
have
on a date.
Yeah.
Second thing I want to mention, not learning, but Hannah Storm, Andrew Kramer, they're hosting, or they're not hosting, but they're
doing the play-by-play in color. First dual female broadcast.
You got to mention that on Amazon, so check that out because it should be good. 2 really good sports broadcasters.
Oh, absolutely. Been around forever, too, so it should be really good. We're looking forward to that. All right, thank you for joining us. If you are playing a lineup tonight, by all means, best of luck. Reid, this was fun. We haven't had the chance to host together yet.
Yeah, Emerson, who?
Let's get you back in your seat sometime soon. We missed your analysis. I like standing next to you. You You're adorable, but we missed that analysis. We want to add to some of that. The sweat here, it is Sunday through Friday, okay? But weekdays, 6 to 7 Eastern. That means we will be back with you again in only 23 hours.
Wait, my watch is on the side.
Yeah, I'm not even wearing one. We'll see you then.